Alright, hello guys, how's it going? In today's video, we're going to be recapping that snowstorm that just happened yesterday. And we're also going to be talking about some other upcoming snowstorms that will be possible in the eastern and the western United States, as well as a little bit of severe weather in the southeastern United States, and also the overall pattern. Anyways, before we get into this video, be sure to smash that like button, leave a comment down below, and subscribe for more weather-related content. For today's comment of the day, I want to know, do you think this next eastern snowstorm could be more major than this one that just happened? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll be picking one of those for tomorrow's video. Now let's get straight into this video, and first things first, we're taking a look here at the national view here on the radar. You can see that we have no precipitation anymore in this region. We can see just a little bit of it moving offshore there of New England, but it is all said and done. And actually, the only thing we have to talk about is up here in the northwest. So let's go ahead and zoom up in there because we still have some storminess. It was a stormy month in December, and it looks like January hasn't been quite as stormy through 4 days, but it still has been pretty stormy, to say the least. We do see a lot of this precipitation moving in to these western states, Northern California. We see Oregon in there, and then also Washington, obviously, as well. They're pretty heavy showers in here, but also some lighter ones and some pockets of, clear sky, actually, as well. And we do have some pretty heavy snowfall coming down for southern Idaho in through a bit of Wyoming. And also southern Oregon has been seeing some of that as well. Overall, we have some snow showers going on for Montana and Idaho also. That's northern Idaho. So there's just some storminess around in general. For the northwestern corner of the United States. Some snowfall in spots, some rainfall in other spots, and some dry spots as well. This is the most confusing thing about the weather out west, is it just does differ like this. Usually in the east, we see huge storms that bring solid, consistent precipitation for very large regions. But these ones out west, it'll be very, I don't know how you'd even put it, like showery or something like that, because it's very spotty. You see these pockets of heavy precipitation and then pockets of clear, and it is all over the place, and that makes them so hard to forecast. I think a lot of the mountainous areas in there break up these storms and do cause a lot of that to happen. So the geography of it really does change a lot of it, but overall, it's just a whole different ballgame out west. So we're going to talk about this storminess out here on the model guidance, but we're also going to talk about that upcoming big snowstorm that is possible in just a few days for the eastern United States. Now, real quickly, here is the past 48 hours snowfall. So we can see the total snowfall that did end up coming down from this storm. And you can see, I told you guys my estimate was about 8 to 12 inches of snowfall, and that was actually the maximum in here. Let me change this color so we can see better in here. So I think about 8 to 12 came down for these regions here. Which is right around where I thought it would go ahead and happen. We also saw some of that here for the Smoky Mountains as well. Beautiful, beautiful region there, down there in the Smoky Mountains of North Carolina and Tennessee. If you've never been, I highly recommend it. Now, for these gray regions is where we basically just saw some snowfall come down and hardly any accumulation, probably none, if anything. And in these lighter blues, that's where we move through 1, 2, 3 inches, and then the darker blues is like 3 to 4. So that's where we're seeing this in here for a lot of those areas in Tennessee. Also, some of these areas here in southern Virginia and northern North Carolina area. And then it's these pinks. That's where we're at the 6 to 12 inch amounts, and we can see again from the Smoky Mountains, take that northward through northern and central Virginia, all the way through the Delmarva, southern Maryland there, DC, and then southern New Jersey. That is where we saw the 6 to 12 inch amounts, and we saw some 12 inch plus amounts here for southern Delaware, and then also the Smoky Mountains, but it was right around at 12 inches. So I think the maximum we saw was 12 or 13 inches in there. Very, very cool stuff. This snowstorm was super interesting. I'm glad it's over because it was very, very hard to forecast, and I really hope this next one is going to be a little bit more simplistic. Just because this one was such a complex system, and it led towards a lot of question marks. I kind of had to hop on here on the video and be like, hey, anything can pretty much happen, because it was just so complicated with the ground temperatures, with the air temperatures, the rain falling before it. There was so many factors going on, and really, I think the snow prevailed regardless of those conditions. So that was pretty interesting to see that occur that way. But I really hope this next one is very simplistic compared to that, like I said before. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna move on and take a look at some model guidance here. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to move through with our European model. Let's just move this towards a little bit later on. This is going to be this evening, later today on Tuesday, January 4th. And we can see a lot of this storminess up there still for the northwestern United States occurring. Again, snowfall for the areas that usually see snowfall, rainfall for the areas that usually see rainfall. It's too complicated to go in there and pick and choose every single little valley and say that they're going to be in rain. So you know who you are. If you're in those areas that usually see rainfall, you will likely see rain, not snow. Now, these storms are going to continue to move in. Actually get a little bit heavier here for the Northern Rockies as well as the storm moves closer and closer to being in the United States mostly and not offshore. We can see the jet stream by this point looks something like this. So it's a little bit flat, but most of the cold, I would say the trough is centered over this line right about here. It might have a little bit of a tilt to it, so it might be something more like this. But regardless, that trough is mostly centered over this region. These areas are seeing a little bit of warmth. Not a lot, though, because it's going to be very seasonable, I would say, for this region instead of being far above normal like we've been seeing. So that is some good news for some of you. We do see some snowfall coming down for the Great Lakes in the upper Midwest by this point, which is Wednesday afternoon. That's tomorrow. Now, this storm is what will eventually become our major East Coast storm. So we see the storm started out here. There's another one there right now, so not to confuse you, but we see it move down here, and that's where we're at now, where the low pressure system is probably, I don't know, let's draw it beneath. Oh, I deleted it. Okay. So it moves in like this. It should be about there. Now, let's watch this play out so you can see it. See the storm moves down and then ends up about there. Okay, so that shows us the jet stream looks something like that, but it becomes more and more east-centered as time moves along. We have another huge snowstorm up here in the northwest, bringing snowfall to Washington, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Colorado. The storminess looks to return to the northwestern United States. I know it doesn't even seem like it really stopped, but it's looking a little bit more like December looked. Not as brutally cold because that cold is centered more over the central United States as opposed to the western United States. But for the northwest, those mountains are so huge, it's still snow that is occurring. Now, for a moment, we're going to zoom into the eastern United States to take a look at this snowstorm. These are areas that are less used to seeing major snow, and these areas typically, it's bigger impacts with less snow. So that's why it is more important to go over these snowstorms for this region. Now, this is by the time we're reaching about 8 p.m. on Thursday. That's going to be January 6th, and we can see some heavy snowfall coming down for some similar regions. Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, Western Virginia, and the Smoky Mountains again. Those areas that just saw 12 inches of snowfall, potentially seeing more. Let's continue this on, and it looks like a very similar storm track. It just looks a little bit more inland than what we saw, and it looks like this one could continue up the coast. Whereas our previous storm, which I'm going to draw in a different color, let's draw this previous storm in red. The previous storm took more of a track like this. You see, so what ended up happening is the snow wasn't able to make its way up the coast because the storm was moving offshore and further offshore as time moved along. So let's play this a little bit further in. And you see how the snowfall makes it way further up into these regions than our previous storm? That's because the low pressure system is here as opposed to here. It moves here like our other storm, or it moves up like this. So that's the difference. But overall, they are pretty similar. Nor'easter, Miller B nor'easter. We're looking at a storm that's only happening a few days later. So typically when you see storms that are very, very similar, they're happening very close together because the jet stream is still in the same position or similar position. Everything's kind of similar. That's what allows for these storms to take very, very similar tracks. But for now, by the time we're reaching 6 a.m. on Friday, January 7th, which is this frame, this actually looks like very heavy snowfall in here. So we could have another major snow event. And look at that, much more major up here than our, these areas didn't even see snowfall with our last storm. So definitely more major than nothing. So obviously, this is by 2 p.m. on Friday. And we eventually see that storm move out. Now, as we take a look at that total snowfall for this storm, on the European model, it's a little bit marginal. You know, it's more major than what we've seen, but it's about 2 to 6 here in the blues, and then about 6 to 10 here in the purples, and 10 inches plus here in the pinks. But I want to go ahead and backtrack here. So let's just go ahead and do that. Okay, backtrack, precipitation type, GFS model. I'm going to go to 0Z here. I don't like 6Z or 18Z runs because they're usually just resamples. So usually I revert to the 0Z run or the 12Z run. That's a little more complicated. Here's the GFS model. And this one strengthens this storm and keeps it much closer to the coast. And we see much heavier snowfall for this pocket in here. It strengthens to this point as well. 970 millibar low pressure center. Very, very heavy snowfall. So this one just bombs out on the GFS model. And as a result, we see much more snowfall in here, more like 6 to 10 inches, fairly scattered in for this region. And honestly, with this current track and strength of the GFS model, I would say this one has potential to be even stronger. You know, with our most recent snowstorm, the interesting thing is that, we were only taking a look at maybe 2 to 4 inches of snowfall maximum with it up until about 1 or 2 days before it started. And then the model started to ramp up those amounts. So that just shows you the possibility with these systems that just because right now it's showing 6 to 10 or 10 inches around as the bullseye, that doesn't mean that it can't become a much more major snowstorm on the models, just in a couple days or even later today. I mean, there is no limit to how much these models can be wrong right now and just shift in a totally different direction. We've seen it time and time again in either direction, weakening or strengthening. The one thing I want you guys to pay attention to for sure is with our other storm, they had a much more southern track. And then you would see, 2 runs later, it would come in a little bit further north. Not that much, but we're just using that as an example. And then a little bit more north the next time too. Again, not that much, but it was more like this much further north, and then this much further north, and this much further north, run after run. And we saw this northern trend, and we've seen that all winter. So with this one, I am curious if we will see these amounts here, these heaviest amounts, trend further north over time. I am curious, and definitely that's what I'd lean towards, more north and more inland. So we're going to see if that trend continues with this one or if it kind of sticks around where they're calling for it at now. So that's, one of those things only time will tell. So what I want to do here is actually go back to our precipitation type. I'm going to go back to our national view and just continue on because I feel bad for the guys out west. I've been getting a lot of comments. So we're going to continue on with this storminess here and track this for you guys. So severe weather also possible with that storm, by the way. We talked about it. We'll talk a little bit more as we know more. But we see this snowfall kind of continue out here for quite a while. We'll take a look at the total snowfall soon. Wouldn't be surprised if on this frame there's some storminess happening down there as well. This is by 2 p.m. on the 9th. It's going to be a Sunday. And we get a little bit of a ridge in the east returning, so that does allow for some storminess to happen there. But then the trough returns to the east again. So we're in a much different pattern than we were in December, because in December it didn't go back and forth. It was constantly the opposite of what you're seeing here on screen. But now for January, what we're seeing from the model guidance is that we're going to see cold. Obviously, it's very cold right now, and it has been cold ever since the cold front came through. And it's going to stay cold quite a while, but then a warm-up might come for a few days, but then we see the cold return. It's not like this constant warm pattern or this constant cold pattern. We're in a very progressive pattern that is allowing for us to go back and forth, and that's the type of pattern you can be optimistic in because we're not stuck in one thing or the other. This pattern has the opportunity to change a lot, and specifically on this frame, I mean, this is an extreme ridge here in the west and an extreme trough in the east, and this is the type of pattern that would allow for a lot of snow and a lot of cold in the east, actually, matter of fact, although it seems to be dry according to the model right now, but it is the very, very long range. But you see how it changes to a much more like weird pattern here. That is because it's longer range on this model, but that just goes to show that this is changing a lot, and that's going to give us, if one day it's not looking like there's an opportunity for snow, the next day or the day after there might be, because the pattern is constantly changing. Whereas in December, you kind of always felt like there was just no chance of it happening because every single day the forecast was 60 degrees. So it's the opposite of what we saw in December, and it's been nice to see this winter kind of turn around and feel much more wintry so far here in January. So I know a lot of people hope that are hoping that continues. I definitely am. Just more opportunity for more interesting weather. Let's just move this out west real quick and take a look at the total snowfall that's expected for you guys. So still, not the 100 to 200 inches we were seeing in December, but still, you see 80s and 50s in here. We see, 20 inches plus down here in California, 2 to 4 feet probably here for the Northern Rockies, and then maybe a foot or 2 or 3 here in the Southern Rockies over the next 10 days. So this is much more seasonable snowfall, I would say, compared to what you were seeing in December, where we were seeing record-breaking snowfall in certain spots. We're seeing much more seasonable snowfall. I love this pattern we're in because I feel like it's very even for everybody. Obviously, you can tell there's plenty of snowfall out west for most areas, and there's quite a bit of snowfall opportunities out east. So I think everybody's kind of happy that like snow at this point, and there's plenty to go around as always. Anyway, guys, for today's confidence tab, we're at a 4 out of 6. I know we're always at a 4 out of 6. I'm not even going to talk about it. For today's comment of the day, I asked you guys about this upcoming snowstorm starting on Thursday into Friday time frame that we talked about in this video, obviously. And James Marr said, I believe the nor'easter expected for Friday could be major for some big East Coast cities, but it's still a little uncertain on where that low pressure tracks. And that's what I love about it. It's not a huge complex storm like we had just a few days ago where it's kind of annoying to try to forecast it, but it's more of like, where is this one going to go? And I love figuring that out with you guys. It's one of my favorite things about the weather. For today's patron highlight of the day, I want to thank you all for supporting the channel, but especially our platinum patrons, Bill Crates, James Wade, Dovin Nagel, Lila Pan, Mandy Birchfield, Patrick Strickland, Dave Scott, and Donna Carnes as well. I would also like to thank our diamond patrons, Bill Roberts, Marcus Connolly, Noah Harley, Michael Kudalesa, Catbite, Charles Tennant, Bill Dallas, Gary's, and John Colisi also. I would also like to thank our channel members, Catbite, Stephen Van, and Jeremy Cox as well. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to smash that like button, leave a comment down below, and subscribe for more weather-related content. I'll see you guys in the next video.